Okay, we're going to call the meeting of the West Covina City Council to order. It's 7 o'clock on February 6th, 2018. First, we'll have an invocation offered by our West Covina Police Chaplain, Kelly Dupuy, and then a Pledge of Allegiance will be led by West Covina Boy Scout Troop 433. Please rise.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much that you are with us and you are here to guide us. And I pray your blessing upon this city council meeting tonight. Thank you, Lord, for the leaders that you've placed in the positions of authority here in our city. And we thank you, God, for the privilege of living or working in such a great place as West Covina. Lord, tonight we lift up all of our residents who are sick or struggling or ill in some way, especially Mrs. Miller, who's 89, today broke her shoulder and her hip. And Lord, just touch her and bring your healing touch. And others among us, God, that might be struggling for different reasons, Lord, let your grace and your mercy, your healing and your provision come to each of their lives. Thank you, God, for what you're going to do in this meeting tonight and how you're going to bless the decisions that are made and guide our city to even greater things. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Color guard, attention. Color guard, advance. Color guard, prepare to cross colors. Color guard, cross colors. All those in uniform, please salute. All those in uniform, please place your right hand over your heart. Please join me in pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
2. Color guard, prepare to post colors. Color guard, post colors. Color guard, honor colors. 2. Color guard, reform. guard, dismiss. Honor guard, dismiss.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Can we have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Toma?
Here.
Councilmember Warshaw?
Here.
Councilman Wu?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson?
Here.
Mayor Spence?
Here. Report out of closed session. Ms. City Attorney, is there any items that we need to report out?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was approval in closed session of an extension of an existing tolling agreement with the BKK Working Group. The initial tolling agreement was entered into in 2009. This would extend it through January 2nd of 2021. That was authorized on a motion by Mayor Spence, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Johnson, and approved on a 5-0 vote. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council. There are no changes to your agenda this evening.
Okay. Thank you. Now I'd like to call forward Chief Larry Whithorn and Assistant Fire Chief Vincent Capelli. So you can do an introduction. And then I got them up there, right?
There's a realization that goes hand in hand with anything you could ever want, and it is that nothing in life is simply deserved. Success has never been about entitlement or what you feel is owed to you. It's about what you can take. You see, every cause has an effect, every journey has a milestone, and every victory has a beginning. And right now begins yours. It is truly an honor and a privilege to introduce our newest member of the West Covina Fire Department family, Assistant Fire Chief Vincent Capelli. Right now would be a good time for a round of applause. For the past 25 plus years, Chief Capelli has been an active and dedicated member of the Compton Fire Department, as well as the fire service in general. His career in the fire service is highlighted by his proven organizational skills, dependability, achievements, and his excellent attitude towards his work. He's acquired a diverse knowledge of the fire service through his practical experience, specialized training, and formal education. And just to highlight a few, Chief Capelli is a state-certified strike team leader. Most recently, he was a strike team leader in which he sent an elite urban search and rescue team that's part of a California regional task force to the mudslides in Montecito. He's a state-certified company officer, a state-certified chief officer, a state-certified fire investigator 1 and 2. He holds an undergraduate degree in public administration, a graduate degree in emergency service management, just to name a few. And he's worked every single position afforded to him thus far: firefighter, firefighter paramedic, acting engineer, fire captain, arson investigator, training officer, deputy fire marshal, battalion chief, assistant fire chief, and oh yeah, on occasion, acting fire chief. I'm sorry about that. So Chief Capelli is going to be an excellent support into our organization. We are very excited and pleased to call him one of our own. Vince, your journey is infinite and so is your potential. What you want is not behind, it's not what you used to be or what you used to do. It's your very next step. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Assistant Fire Chief Capelli to his well-deserved new position.
Thank you, Chief Whithorn, Mayor, City Council, City Manager, citizens of West Covina. I wouldn't be here without my wife, Nancy, who's here tonight with me, supporting me in this journey. Like Chief said, it's been a long time in the fire service, and I'm very, very excited to help and work with the fire chief and the rest of the city department management, and taking the fire department to the next step in greatness. They've already done greatness over the many years, and I think I could bring in a lot of good stuff that I've gotten over the years. And I just want to be here for the community, for the citizens, for the fire department, and do what I can. Like she said, I've well versed in a lot of areas, and I can work with the guys and girls of this city to do the best I can. For record, I wasn't ready to speak, but thanks, Chief. He probably did it on purpose. That's okay. But again, I thank you for the opportunity to come here and work for the city of West Covina, the citizens, and I really look forward to what the future holds for me here and for the fire department. And it's going to be a pleasure and an honor to work for the citizens of the city of West Covina.
On today's date, in 1911, Ronald Reagan was born. And Ronald Reagan, you know, we had the Portals grand opening, and I talked a little bit about the Portals family and how after they lost their jobs, after Castro seized control of Cuba, how she organized an underground bakery in order to support the family. And that was the origin of Portos. And then they came here to the United States, and on the plane to Los Angeles, she had booked a first order for some stuff to bake, even though they didn't have a restaurant or anything to do. And that they were really part of what the American dream is about what freedom is about. And Ronald Reagan was born in difficult circumstances. He got a lucky break and came out to California in 1932 to be part of Warner Brother test screen. He had been a sports broadcaster back east, where he was born. And then something happened that no one ever believed would happen. After his acting career, he was president of the Screen Actors Guild for several tumultuous terms, actually, where there were lots of different struggles about who was going to control that union. And then he got elected governor of the state of California in 1966. And then he got elected president of the United States, as most of you know. And as part of that, what I feel is very important, or what is very important, is that he actually changed the whole paradigm about how we thought about our foreign affairs, about whether or not communism was a good place to be and how we're going to deal with that. And that's one of the reasons the Berlin Wall came down, and that's something that my mom's a German, and my dad has a picture of himself under the Brandenburg Gate just a year before the wall went up, and then shortly after that. And so he actually exemplified what happens with freedom, how that can be successful. And he's the only Californian that has served as governor and president at all. So that's why today I wanted to honor his memory. And here to accept the Ronald Reagan Day proclamation is someone whose dad served with Ronald Reagan in Sacramento when he was governor. I know there's lots of people that have different stories about Ronald Reagan. I know I always post the one where I'm in a prayer circle with him, because that's something that was very special when I got to meet Ronald Reagan and then was in a prayer circle with him. But Chris Lancaster is here, and his father, Bill Lancaster, was an assemblyman and also represented part of this area. And Chris was a city councilman in Covina at one point, or 2 points, or 3 points, I don't remember how many points. And so, Chris, would you come up here? And on behalf of the citizens of West Covina, I'd like to give you this proclamation on Ronald Reagan Day and ask you to share a little bit.
Oh, thank you. Well, first of all, it's a tremendous honor to be here. And quite honestly, I never met Ronald Reagan. Really? But I was on my mission for the Mormon Church when he came into the district with my father and did a fundraiser for my father. But my father did know him very well and thought he was a wonderful man. And Anyway, it's such a pleasure to be here on this behalf. Now, I got to share with you, I am wearing the presidential Ronald Reagan cufflinks tonight in honor of this. But thank you so much for thinking of me and my father in relationship to this. And I will share with you 2 pieces of trivia about Ronald Reagan. He didn't like Brussels sprouts, and he started eating jelly beans because he was smoking a pipe, and he thought that'd be the best way to stop smoking. All right? Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Chris. Also, we had the Boy Scout troop here tonight, and on February 8th is actually National Boy Scouts Day. And I can think of no better troop to honor than to have Troop 433 come up here that's sponsored by the Knights of Columbus, the Father McGuire Council. They are the 2nd oldest unit, Boy Scout unit, in the San Gabriel Valley. This is their 60th anniversary of continuous service. That's impressive to have leadership and to have that kind of activity. The Boy Scouts, I know, believe it or not, I was a Boy Scout. I was probably not a great Boy Scout or a great Eagle Scout. I was an Eagle Scout, but I know I'm better because I was a Boy Scout. And I was better because I was involved in the scouting program. And so I want to present to you the proclamation on National Boy Scouts Day, which is February 8th. And thank you very much for your service.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Boy Scouts, we hold it true. It's a boy-ran troop. So with that said, I'm going to toss it over to our senior patrol leader.
Thank you. My name is Dominic Santos, and I am the senior patrol leader. What I basically do, I'm in charge of this big troop, and I'm proud to be part of it. And we've been in the city of West Covina for 60 years, and I hope we'll be in it for 100 more. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I also wanted to, on behalf of the city, I wanted to also present to you a certificate honoring you on your 68th anniversary of service here, and thank you for creating young men and young leaders.
Thank you.
Thank you
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
And, you know, on that whole theme of freedom and being able to do what you want to do, we have a business that started right here in the city of West Covina that's been open 25 years. So if I could have Art Solis come up and celebrate the $3.99 pizza company with 2 locations in West Covina. I won't mention the ones not in West Covina. But they just had their 25th anniversary. And they were buying cheap pizza, right? Yeah. They can't do that now, though, right? No. So it's an honor to have a small business that started in West Covina, that's been successful, that's managed to grow. And I just wanted to recognize, and the council wanted to recognize you. And Assemblywoman Bianca Rubio was kind enough to send along a certificate of recognition as well that we'd like to give you, recognizing you on your 25th anniversary. So thank you. Andy, want to say something? Plug your business. Plug your business.
Well, just want to say thanks to the City of West Covina. If it wasn't for the City of West Covina giving us an opportunity to open up our first location, I wouldn't be at where we're at now. And I want to thank my wife that she's also supported me throughout the years. And this guy right here, he came out on the paper not so long ago. He thinks he's a celebrity. Back then, when we were in Azusa, he was like 9 years old, running around while I'm over here cooking pizzas. But, you know, we tugged it up through the year. So, yeah, so we opened up another location here in Badillo and Orange in West Covina. So it's been good. A lot of support from the residents, a lot of support from the city. That's what keeps us going. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you. Did you want to come up here? Did you want them up here?
Yeah.
Come up here. Come here. Tonight we have also several adjourn and memory motions. Tonight we'd like to adjourn the meeting in honor of Raul Guerrero. Raul was a U.S. Air Force veteran, a member of the 322nd Squadron, and a veteran of Foreign Wars member. He was a West Covina resident. He passed away in November, and he's survived by his wife and 2 children. And we give our sincerest condolences to the Guerrero family. Our second adjournment motion tonight is in honor of Shirley Ammentorp, a West Covina resident. She passed away on Christmas Day. She's survived by her husband, Ray, who many of you probably know was a teacher at Edgewood High School in the West Covina Unified School District, and was active in the Episcopalian, St. Martha's Episcopalian Church when it was open. She's survived by Ray and the 3 sons, and our condolences go to her family as well. Our third adjournment motion tonight is in honor of Chelsea McKee. She's the 17-year-old resident from South Hills High School who passed last month after a tragic car accident. She was part of South Hills High School swim team, a senior honor student, and had received a full ride scholarship to Cal Baptist University. And we extend our sincere condolences to her family at this time. Our fourth adjournment tonight is in honor of Bernie Wilner. And Corey, you wanted to share something about him?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bernie and his wife, Joanne Wilner, were longtime residents of West Covina, and they attended, back in the early 2000s, as I remember, they were here for every planning commission and every city council meeting. They were early activists back then, and before the drought, they had already done their landscaping, changing from all grass in the front yard to a desert motif with rock and cactus. And I think they did that in like 2000 or 2001. Bernie was a very nice gentleman. He didn't always say a lot in the meetings. He left that to Joanne, and we always heard from Joanne, but he will be sorely missed.
And I turned it off, actually. Our last adjournment tonight is in honor of Stacy Sabin. Stacy Sabin, she passed away after battling breast cancer. For the last 4 years, she was a West Covina High School art teacher, and she's survived by her husband and son, and our thoughts and prayers go out to her family and, of course, to her students. Is there anyone else that has any other adjournment motions? Okay, City Clerk, please note these adjournment motions at the end of the meeting. Thank you. Okay, we are at the public comment part, And to remind you to fill this out, and if you circle 1 minute, you go first. If you circle 3 minutes, you go next. And then 5, that's an option. And there's also a form if you just wanted to recognize opposition or support for a particular item that may be on the agenda. Our first speaker will be Bruce Leinbach. And he will be followed by Wenwen Zhang.
Good evening, City Council, Mayor, audience. My name is Bruce Leinbach. I've been in the city since 1970. That's 47 years ago. That means I'm in what they call over the hill gang. I want to tell you I had great news in October. I had my 5th grandchild born. And it was at the age of 7'5". I want to make a point. But 6, 7 years ago, I was real happy with my 3 sons. Here they are, all in the 30s, and I had no grandchildren. I said, what are you guys doing? I'm going to be 70 pretty soon, and I don't have any grandkids. And believe it or not, I had my first grandson born. And then a year later, I had another granddaughter, then another granddaughter, another granddaughter. So in 5 years, at age 70 to 75, I have great grandkids. All I got to say, they have Father's Days, Mother's Days. They all have Grandparents' Days, too. They do have one, but we ought to recognize them. But it's great being a grandparent. It's one of the great things about life. Okay, so like I say, I really enjoy my grandchildren, but here's the main reason I want to talk, okay? I had a little problem with commuting with the water, I think it was your water department or whatever. And the problem is, it wasn't a big problem, but the issue is when I was talking to them, they put me on hold. And they left me on hold for an hour. Now, I've owned a real estate office or whatever, had a receptionist, and what you think of your company or whatever you have a reception, how you answer that phone, how you treat the people, that's what they remember. And just being left on hold for an hour, I don't know, this is not a big deal, but it's something that when people call up, they come in, we want to make them feel like they're welcome and realize they're calling West Covina, #1 city in the West Covina, in the city, in the valley. So I just say this, I have a little thing, but put person for our hold, and I've called in before, and they leave you on hold. I think that the staff or whatever should make a better effort of greeting the people who are calling in. Make them realize West Covina is #1. Thank you.
Water. Wenwen Zhang, followed by Barbara Sepulveda. Well, no, you're going to follow Wenwen Zhang.
Oh,
sorry.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no problem. You can sit by Forrest over there and get ready. Good.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members, staff, and the members of the community. My name is Wenwen Zhang, West Covina Library Manager. I'm happy to make announcement of upcoming special library programs. To celebrate the Black History Month of February, the West Covina Library will hold a African and African American Tales program for children tomorrow afternoon at 4 p.m. Accomplished storyteller Mr. Michael McCarty will present the stories that describe the challenges and the triumphs of African people throughout the history of the Americas. Also, to honor the Black History Month, we will host a live concert this coming Saturday, February the 10th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Mr. Paul Stein, a violinist with the Los Angeles Philharmonic, will present the music of 2 great composers, Scott Joplin and Samuel Coleridge Taylor. Other featured composers will be Mozart and Beethoven, Bach, Vivaldi, and John Williams. Well, tax season is here. Our library will be hosting 5 text preparation assistant programs on February the 3rd, 17th, and March the 3rd, 17th, and the 31st. They are all Saturdays. The program will begin from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. So if you earned $54,000 last year, disabled, or have limited English language skills, you can have your federal and state tax returns prepared and electronically filed for free by a professionally trained volunteer. Spanish and Chinese bilingual volunteers will be available on site to provide assistance as needed. The West Covina Library will host another series of free citizenship classes from February the 6th, which is today, to March the 28th. The classes will be on every Tuesday and Wednesday evening from 5:30 to 7:30. Pre-registration is required for these classes. Please sign up at the library's information desk, or you may call the library. And this program is sponsored by the International Rescue Committee. Another program, the Brea Institute Los Angeles will hold a workshop for the public at our library on Tuesday, February the 27th at 11 a.m. Their specialists will come and discuss the free library services and the digital technology available from the Institute. They will lead a hands-on demonstration and explain the resources available to anyone with visual impairment or movement disorders. I also wanted to mention that LA Law Library will have office hours at the West Covina Library. Office hours on every first and the third Wednesday from 10 a.m. in the morning to 1:30 p.m. So during the office hours, a LA Law Library legal research specialist will be available at our library to provide the public, including the legal professionals, help locating information and resources concerning legal issues and court procedures. Well, thank you very much for your attention, and most of the programs are posted on the library's website and Facebook, and also on the city's website calendar. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara Sepulveda, followed by Frederick Sykes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Barbara Sepulveda. I reside in West Covina. The reason I'm here this evening is I reside in a 214-unit complex that is a radius of approximately 4 blocks. Adjacent to our complex, we are on Amar and Nogales are 2 of our major streets. There is a shopping center right next door. This particular shopping center has 2 entrances, one on Amar and one on Nogales. It has become now extremely dangerous in that now they are entering on Paseo Merida, which is one of our entrances into our complex. It initially was not a problem, except that now we're getting people who are going to the shopping center, or it's more business, eateries, etc. And they're coming in from Amar, hanging in a quick left and not even looking to the right. And we as residents are using that as an exit and an entrance. I've had a couple of situations where an accident has almost occurred. I had a gentleman, once I honked to let him know that he was gonna hang the left and I was already approaching. He got out of the car, was extremely violent. And I'm fearful for a lot of our residents because we do have a lot of seniors in our complex. We also have a lot of elderly, like myself. I would really appreciate the council letting us know, as in our community, what we can do to try to avoid an accident, try to avoid confrontation. I actually spoke with the property management company, a woman, I don't have her name right now, and she was very argumentative. She didn't want to listen to anything I had to say other than apparently our residents are taking up their parking spaces. I surely would like to know what the property line is and how we can find a happy medium to this. Again, they have 2 other entrances. I'm not quite sure why they're choosing to utilize the one that our residents utilize. I came to a city council meeting about a year ago with a problem regarding something in our complex. I was given a business card for a gentleman who apparently was on city council, and I never heard a word. I literally blew up his phone and left him messages, and I never received any phone calls back. I really would appreciate someone getting back with me and letting me know what type of solution we can have for this, because again, it's now kind of out of control. So thank you so much. I do have, I'm sorry, I do have some pictures, if I can just.
And which shopping center are you adjacent to that you're talking about on Amar and Nogales?
I'm sorry?
Which shopping center are you talking about? South Corner?
Yes.
Yeah, I
And
know
this
where
is,
Amar and Nogales, but which one? Mr. Freeland, can you make sure that someone gets with her about what kind of traffic options there are and studies and that
Certainly,
kind of stuff?
I'm looking at the aerial of the site. Looks like it's all both private properties. It's the shopping center is half of the
Yeah, that's what I was trying to pull up and
aisle,
see.
and the other half is the apartment complex or the condominium complex.
So you'll hear from Mr. Freeland or staff by tomorrow,
okay?
Yes.
I appreciate that.
and then we'll go from there.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Mr. Sykes, followed by Bill Elliott.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, city staff, members of the audience. I am Frederick Sykes, 48 resident of West Covina, retired LA County Deputy Sheriff, and former Mayor of West Covina. First on my mind tonight is my respect to the Wilners. I met them some 12 years ago right here in this chamber. And the Wilners, Joanne Wilner passed away a few years ago, and her husband Bernie passed away only a few days ago. They raised their children here. They lived in the city since about 1962, and they worked to improve it. They were active at this chamber long before me and my wife arrived. And we really appreciate everything we learned from them regarding our local government. Joanne also taught me that weeds are not just important plants that, that we should not appreciate, and that weeds are another person's wonder. So to Joanne and Bernie, thank you. Thank you very much. I also want to thank the City Council for remembering those good folks. And to the Mayor Pro Tem, thank you for the certificate of recognition for the Boy Scout, young Mr. Fernando Torres, and for all his accomplishments. Appreciate it. Thank you. Agenda item 18, we're at it again with these districts. Since 2008, the majority of the City Council has been spending taxpayer dollars resisting the establishment of voting districts. And now you are still risking more tax dollars for litigation. So while we are trying to put our municipal elections and city officials in good order, we should ensure fair elections by establishing voting districts that are created as described by the law. Our voting districts should be compact, contiguous, and the only reason for splintering, dividing, and splitting communities should be to obtain as close as possible equal population numbers in each of the 5 voting districts. Most of the residents of West Covina are hardworking, law-abiding, and good people that deserve to be represented by officials of good character and reputation. There should be some sort of automatic restrictions in our municipal codes regarding officials that are both elected and appointed who are convicted criminals and admitted violators of high crimes and misdemeanors. Now, moving on to agenda item 19, camping and storing property in public places. This updated law to clean and protect our city has been urgently needed for many years. However, we also need to be equally involved in permanent local and regional solutions. If the focus is to only move our homeless residents out of West Covina, then we are not being good neighbors. And this resolution is only a temporary solution because the flood control channels and the streets will route them back to West Covina. With the homeless in mind, in addition to clearing the streets of deleterious property, we need to provide resources for hygiene, shelter, and housing. Additionally, their physical and mental health must be addressed. The history of Skid Row and, of course, our own long-term struggle with our homeless problem indicates that if every municipality continues to work individually, then all we do is drive the homeless from one place to another, and eventually our homeless will come back to us. Gentlemen, thank you.
Mr. Elliott, followed by Mr. Shoemaker.
Good evening, City Council. My name is William Elliott, resident of West Covina on and off for the last 30 years. So I lived in my current place 12 years now. And I missed the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. I was disappointed I was a little behind schedule. I love pledging my allegiance to my country. And how about this group of boys that were here tonight? Wow. I hope you took a good look at them because those are our future leaders. Like Mike Spence, he was a scout. You know, I wish Mike would have mentioned that he was an Eagle Scout when you were at 17. I wish he would have mentioned that because, you know, I found out in December, and we lost our mom on Christmas Eve, and I found out that my mom saved my Cub Scout uniform, and that was pretty cool. And I also found out that my mom was a member of National Honor Society, which I never knew when she was in high school. I wish I would have known that because I probably would have tried harder in school. But it was really sad losing Mom, and you know, she was a big fixture in our neighborhood in Hacienda Heights and the school district and all that. And I really feel like my mom was my advantage in life. So that being said, I went to the VFW tonight. No, excuse me, I'm sorry. American Legion. And they have a steak dinner there every first Tuesday of the month. So it's real easy for me to remember when this steak dinner is going to have. It's only $9. It's a ribeye steak. It's a huge baked potato and fixins and all that for $9, and it supports the American Legion down there. Also went to Super Bowl Sunday at the VFW. Man, we are so fortunate in West Covina to have these community organizations where you can just drop in and it's like Cheers. You're welcome. Everybody welcomes you. And you know, George Ogden's really done so much getting the VFW back in order. He really deserves a lot of credit for that. So support your local organizations. Let's see. When I came in tonight, I parked on the upper level, and this is what I saw when I came down the stairs. The trash can is just overflowing. And, you know, that's not West Covina, guys. That's Baldwin Park. That's El Monte. That's Azusa. We shouldn't have trash overflowing on city property on the night of city council. Somebody is not doing their job. So that should be addressed. I just wanted to also share with you, down at the American Legion tonight, they had on display for us to all remember, which I couldn't really even tell you what it was, what was in it before I read it, but it was the preamble to the Constitution of the United States. And I'm not going to read it, but it's just, you should take a look at it. It talks about following the law and following the Constitution and the rule of law and all of that. Let me see, what else did I want to address tonight? Well, you know, I was talking to somebody this week. Matter of fact, it was at the American Legion. He's kind of a fixture in the city. Everybody knows him, loves him. And we were talking, I heard him defending the First Amendment. I think he feels like the First Amendment is under attack, and in many ways it is, but we kind of disagree on exactly how that comes about and which side, you know, what court the ball falls in. And there are arguments on each side, but I appreciate his defense of the First Amendment. And then we started talking about the Second Amendment, and he was completely the exact opposite. And he was complaining that here in the city of West Covina, that if you can imagine this, that there's laws that they make in Sacramento that prevents us here in West Covina from building the kind of buildings we want to build. There's mandates from the state that has nothing to do with West Covina that forces our hand, as what it does, it ties our hands. We can't do anything about these state laws that cover municipalities. It's illegal for you to even change the law. It's the law. And you can't do anything about it except complain. You can, you know, be a rabble-rouser like me, and you can, you know, be repetitious and, you know, dedicated and all of that, but it doesn't really change anything. And he was talking about building buildings, but that reminds me of how the law is in West Covina regarding what Sacramento's decided us for the Second Amendment. You know, any law that the state makes that takes away local control, we're a city. We should be able to make our own laws, period, and not be holding to the state of California and Jerry Brown, people like Grace Napolitano. Thank you.
John Shoemaker, followed by Craig Melker. I messed that up again. Sorry. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Couple items. I understand we're working on getting the 4th of July in order. Hopefully by the next meeting we'll have where we're going to have it somewhere in this city. You know, when I was thinking about this today, what came to mind was the difference in how different organizations work. When the school district, with all the building that's going on, staff said, oops, we're going to have a problem with graduation because the football stadium's going to be having new bleachers and we might not have things ready. So when they brought it to the board, they had, here's the problem and here's the places we can hold it. Which one of the, and here's our recommendation. Kind of proactive, you know, and solving the problem, where all too often what happens here is, City Council, we have a problem. What would you like us to do? And the reply back is, your job, you know, check in things, how we might be able to resolve it, and bring it back. So 6 weeks later, you finally get some resolution. And I'm hoping that either tonight after I finish speaking, or by the next council meeting, we'll have a resolution where the 4th of July is going to be held, so we don't run into one of these situations where the day before it's to be handled, we have a big oops, and we don't have it. You know, just something that's been kind of a tradition in our city. I had to kind of laugh on a couple of requests, you know, a good request by Councilmember Toma to get more information out on the website, especially with campaign financing, so you know who's paying for people to be in political office. I thought at the same time it was kind of funny that there's an agenda item to approve minutes of meetings from 3 months ago. Yeah. Can you add that to your request, that we also get minutes of meetings up to the City Council before 3 months? You know, and other committees that we have on. You know, because that would definitely help. I hope was the bank playing a delay with you guys, and because the letter of credit that expired in January is just now being approved. I know I've had that problem with banks. You know, it's, hey guys, you know, our letter of credit expires in a month, and 2 months later they come in, oh, here's the renewal. So sometimes you can't avoid those types of issues. I hope with today's technology that a lot of the records that are, that are legally can be destroyed are, set up electronically so people can go back and look at them. I know with a lot of things that go on in cities, you have to go back years to find different things to prove a point. I know if it's paper especially, there's a lot of wasted space, but when you can scan them, it doesn't take too much space to store things for years after years. I think, a little bit I know about records is they're minimums, not necessarily maximums. So, I think with today's technology, it's not the same as having a warehouse full of paperwork from 20 years ago that, you're spending a ton of money to do it. So hopefully we'll keep things like that going on. So again, hopefully we'll have some good news shortly about the 4th of July, and we'll see all you at the next meeting. Thank you.
Craig, followed by Letitia Coshano.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Craig Melker. I'm a resident here in the city. I believe one of the most important jobs for the City Council is to be a good steward of the city's future. I think that means you got to spend wisely today, find ways to raise sales and property tax revenue, and do everything you can to maximize any city investments. There's some recent data from CalPERS that indicates of the 427 cities in California, there are only 7 cities that are we're way behind in our public employee retirement obligations. There's only 7 other cities worse than us, what I'm trying to say, poorly. I want to acknowledge that we can't go back and undo past decisions. I'm a little frustrated with the process that happened with the recent general plan update, because I think that the city spent $500,000 on a plan that we didn't get buy-in from the current city council. That's not a good way to spend public dollars, in my opinion. I do think we can make better decisions going forward. And even though I'm frustrated, I do want to try and participate actively in a good solution. I don't want to just come up here and be one of the angry gadflies that's angry about the economic position of the city. So the idea I'd propose tonight is that potentially you could develop a plan where the city defines where it wants to be in some reasonable time period, say 5 years from tonight. And then you define how you're going to get there. But the only way an idea like that would work is if all 5 of you actively buy into this, because it's going to involve, I believe, a combination of some type of spending for future revenue because we need more money coming in down the road, and there's going to have to be some realistic reduction in the city costs. I don't see how you can pay for it any other way. And ultimately, I contend it takes full buy-in, because you can't have one council member hiding in the shadows waiting to kneecap the rest of you. It's got to be a uniform thing for it to work. I personally strongly supported the Glendora Avenue project because I absolutely believed that it would bring in more in development and revenue than it ever would have cost the city. I also think it had some buy-in from the community. It is a perfectly good area for the city to invest in itself, and I think the Lancaster has already proven the concept that this would have been a great way to make an improvement. But the reality is that if the majority of the council doesn't see the value of the project, then you don't. But I would also make the case that then the ball is in your court. Many of the people who spoke for and against the Glendora Avenue project were frustrated. Personally, my frustration really stems from the lack of a uniform, coherent plan. I also think some of the residents may not realize how similar a household budget is to a city budget. That in a household budget, you've got your money for your day-to-day expenses, rent, food, gas, utilities, whatever. Cities have police costs, fire costs, street maintenance, parks costs. Hopefully in your household budget, you've got some discretionary money. You've got some money for a dinner out once in a while, a movie, city's discretionary money potentially is a free concert or a fireworks show. That if the household budget is really well planned, you're also putting money away for future investment. You're putting money into a 401k, something that will return more to you than you put in. I do think there's a huge difference between taking $1,000 out and spending on a trip to San Diego and taking $1,000 out of your family checking account and putting it in an investment for the future. Cities desperately need some type of economic improvement plan. There needs to be some investment by the city the same way a good household will invest in its own future. I do think a wise investment, for example, a kitchen remodel, returns an investment on a day-to-day basis to the users of the kitchen, and it results in an increase in property value. If so long as the improvement to the users outweighs the negative cost, that project was a success. The same thing applies to the city. So long as the benefits outweigh the negatives, it was a good project. So I want to say that I'm absolutely ready to support any uniform project the council has. I do think you guys need to come up with something the residents can support. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mayor Spence, council members, and city staff. My name is Leticia Colchado, and I'm with the Los Angeles County Chief Executive Office Homeless Initiative. I'm also a proud homeowner and resident of the city. I'm here today to urge the council not to adopt the proposed ordinance, which would make it illegal to sleep or possess personal belongings on streets, sidewalks, and in public places, ultimately making homelessness illegal in the city of West Covina. Adoption of this ordinance would be counterproductive to the efforts of both the city and the county to combat and prevent homelessness. The Homeless Initiative has been leading the county's efforts in implementing a comprehensive plan to combat homelessness. The Homeless Initiative was launched in August of 2015, and the county has approved and implemented 45 of the 51 strategies to combat homelessness, secured an ongoing revenue source of approximately $355 million per year, and is working to fill over 600 jobs in the homeless services sector that have been created by Measure H. A key aspect of the Homeless Initiative is strengthening our partnership throughout the county, including working closely with cities and communities across the region. With the implementation of Measure H, the county has been growing the homeless service delivery system and is working harder than ever to find homes for individuals and families experiencing homelessness. We've expanded outreach teams across the county. Since Measure H went into effect in July 2017, outreach teams have connected more than 2,738 individuals to services, placed 441 individuals into interim housing, and linked 359 individuals to permanent supportive housing programs. From July 2017 through December 2017, 7,297 individuals entered crisis, bridge, and interim housing. We continue to expand crisis and bridge housing beds, and since July 2017 have awarded contracts to bring 302 more beds online. Our homeless service delivery system is growing, and we're counting on cities to be partners in this effort. As you know, in May 2016, the city of West Covina was one of the first cities in LA County to adopt a resolution to partner with the county's homeless initiative to combat homelessness. As part of its efforts to partner with cities, the county is providing funding and ongoing support to the city of West Covina to develop a city-specific plan to combat homelessness. The county is also funding the San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments to work closely with West Covina and other cities in the valley to provide coordination and support across the various cities. Our goal is to support cities in the development of meaningful plans that create long-term solutions, which also aligns with the stated city council goal of identifying resources and programs for promoting homeless solutions. The county is further committed to provide ongoing services for creation of permanent supportive housing and is exploring options for strengthening the way we help those with the most chronic and severe health and mental health conditions who are experiencing homelessness. Instead of adopting the proposed ordinance, we believe a more proactive and permanent solution is for the city to work with community partners and the residents in the development of its plan to combat homelessness with a focus on inclusion of long-term solutions as opposed to strategies that are known to criminalize homelessness. These long-term solutions include strategies like enhancing access to the coordinated entry system, working with landlords to encourage participation in the homeless incentive program, identifying space in the city for safe parking, master leasing of motels and blighted properties, and identifying year-round shelter beyond that of the existing winter shelter program. With each of these opportunities, we can leverage case management and supportive resources that are available through the county. I mentioned the efforts and progress the city and the county of West Covina, the county and the city of West Covina have achieved over the past 2 years, because adopting this ordinance now is counterproductive to the efforts and progress made thus far. The ordinance is counterproductive because, one, it will criminalize West Covina residents who are experiencing homelessness, a move that's particularly troubling given that there's not yet sufficient housing and shelter resources to offer them. It may incentivize homeless residents to move into more hidden areas of the city where finding them to provide services would be more difficult. It will push homeless residents to surrounding cities, which will hinder the spirit of collaboration and shared ownership necessary for a regional approach to combat homelessness. It will create an administrative burden and saddle homeless individuals and families with the burden of paying a citation that could lead to failure to pay a citation that could lead to failure to appear warrants and arrest records that may disqualify them from housing and jobs.
Your time is up.
Thank you. We urge you to
Thank you.
oppose
Vicky Shalega, followed by Herb Redholz.
Mom, that's a German name, Shalega. Vicky Shalega. I'm a resident here. I'm with the West Covina Lions Club. I'm representing them tonight because my president cannot be here. He's ill. We are coming up to that time of year again where we are looking for co-sponsorship for our Night on the Town, for our biggest fundraiser for the community. I'm hoping that the co-sponsorship will help us with some funding for our permits. This money that comes in benefits over 3,500 kids a year for their eye screening. Any kids that need free glasses, we take the bill on that. Any of them that we find that need surgery, we take the bill on that too. We also cover the disabled people that need wheelchairs, and all the money we get from selling our tickets goes straight back into the community. So I'm hoping that you will help us with the funds for our event. And before I make any flyers for co-sponsorship and put a city logo on, I'll need an okay from you guys when you vote on it. So I'm also going to be selling tickets, so please buy them from me. Thank you very much. Oh, May 23rd, Wednesday night. Thank you.
Herb Redholz, followed by Ray Edmondson.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, council members and members of the public. I'm up here tonight to ask you to support the mayor's request for an opposition position to Senate Bill number 827. When I saw this, I don't know what it was. I Googled it. Turns out it has a lot to do with planning. And being a planning commissioner, this affects me and my ability to make decisions for this city. And looking at what this proposal is, it's the state wanting to circumvent the ability of the city to make decisions for itself. To me, it's a local control issue. If you look at it, and frankly speaking, it's not that I'm diametrically opposed to what is proposed here. I don't like the fact that the state is forcing us to do these things. Things that affect our way of life and our quality of life in the city should be left to us as council members, as commissioners, to make those decisions. But if you look at this, the state is mandating that we do things. It's taking the power away from us. And it's happening far too many times. So since this is a bill that's being proposed, I think the city should take a position in opposition to it and keep control of what we do in our city as far as floor area ratios and building heights and what we allow here should be left up to us, not up to the state, demanding that we comply with what they want us to do. So I would urge you to take a position in opposition to SB 827. Thank you.
Okay, Ray Edmondson, followed by Forrest Wilkins.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ray Edmondson. I've been a West Covina resident for 25 of my 21 years of existence. I just got back from being out of the country for about 2 years, and one of the first things I noticed upon coming back was, wow, there's a lot more homeless people here than I remember. And I'm glad that the City Council recognizes it's a problem. I was at the homeless count the other night. I saw a few of you there. I remember Nicole Bresciani spoke and said, I think we had a 238% increase over the last 2 years, and we didn't even count all our areas. So obviously that there's an issue going on here. What I don't agree with is the way that we are going about, the proposal to go about solving this. The ordinance about taking unintended items away and things away when people are camping. These are homeless, often mentally ill, very vulnerable individuals, and the proposal seems to be, let's steal their things when they're not looking. Anything left unattended is eligible to be forfeited to the police, and after 90 days, they get to keep it. There is a 90-day period where homeless people can come if they have proof of ownership and pay a reasonable fee. I would like to know what a reasonable fee is, and whether the average homeless person can afford that. And I also want to know what proof of ownership is. Like, I have a lot of camping gear, and if my pack got left out in the woods and somebody picked it up, I don't know how I could possibly prove ownership of my stuff. I don't have my name on anything. I don't have my ID on anything. If my carabiners with my gear colors aren't in there, it could be anybody's pack. So I'd like to know how that is done. I don't think this is the best way we can do this. When I was in the Peace Corps, I was in Albania, which is a lower middle income country. The city I was in was actually about the size of West Covina. It was about 100,000 people. The income was about $400 per month. The property tax is almost non-existent. There was no income tax. The city basically made its revenue out of fees on registrations on vehicles and all sorts of random stuff like that. In the city, I also had a homeless problem there. We had a large Roma community. It's what we would pejoratively refer to as gypsies in the US. And they were very discriminated against. Huge homeless population there of Roma. And the city, despite having almost no funding, still managed to provide health services for them. And not only that, but built them shelters, despite being basically dirt poor. So if a city in a developing country can manage to provide shelter and medical care for their homeless, I don't understand why we can't do that. I think that's it for my points. Thank you.
And now this is the last one, unless anyone else.
Greetings, Mayor, City Council, citizens of West Covina. As I've stated before, my wife and I have lived in West Covina for over 45 years now. Councilman Wu, you've encouraged me to always bring a smile to the council office, to the council chambers here and so forth. What is in the corner and has the possibility of going around the world? The postage stamp. Come on, Tony, it's funny. I hold in my hand here a photo that I took at the Central Avenue off-ramp in Montclair. It says, "No soliciting, streets and highways, code section 225.5, and it should have a VC after that for vehicle code. Several months ago, before this sign was posted, I had the opportunity to pull off at Central Avenue to go to Costco to get some gas. At the off-ramp, there were some solicitors, and then sometime after that, I was in that area and the sign was posted. And after the sign was posted, I didn't see any panhandlers or solicitors. So I offer that to the City of West Covina Police Department. It could possibly give them another tool on how to take care of these individuals who gather at the on-ramps and off-ramps selling their wares, and which slows down traffic, causes traffic congestion. Sometimes people slam into cars that are stopped that shouldn't be stopped. And then speaking about West Covina PD, I don't know how many people saw it on Instagram last week, but there was an individual who approached the West Covina police station with a baseball bat and smashed the windows and so forth. West Covina PD deployed very well, and they did the tackle maneuver behind him, and it was a year ago? I just saw it. Oh, well, I just saw it on Instagram last week, so. Well, anyway, still hats off to West Covina PD. Okay, I have not attended any of the community meetings where Sing Poli has been making their pitch and so forth, but my life experience makes me kind of beware of when some of the basics aren't covered. For an example, if you go to the Sing Poli website, they have a location in Arcadia, they have one in Pasadena, and they have some phone numbers listed. I tried to I did call the phone numbers and so forth, and there was no answer. Kind of like Bruce Limbaugh stated earlier about when people call on the phone, they expect an answer and so forth. So that kind of gives me a little, there's supposed to be a multi-mega buck corporation, and they don't have anybody to man their phones. That kind of concerns me. And also, I have good information that there was a citizen who addressed a few questions at this community meeting that Sing Poli was at. And shortly after that, he gets phone calls from his relatives back in the Midwest and neighbors and so forth. People are calling and want to know if there's any dirt on this citizen. What is this? Is this Sing Poli a mafia organization or what? Doesn't set a tone for me. I have further information if you'd like to know about that, Chris. I'd be more than happy to share it with you. But mayor, city council, city manager, I see some red flags there. They need to be a little more PR conscious if they want to put something here in the community. The reason why I wanted to get their telephone number is I went to a hockey game my sister-in-law's grandson played in. And I remember, since I've been here 45 years, there used to be an ice rink here in West Covina on Hollenbeck and so forth. The closest one is in Ontario. I guess there's one in Chino, and there's one in Pasadena. I think that would be something considered that the Sing Poli might want to consider. I think that would be beneficial to the community. So even though some of my comments sounded negative, but there was a positive one about going around the world. Tony Wu. Thank you.
And on that funny note, that ends our public comment. Mr. City Manager, is there anything you'd like to comment on?
I'll follow with the speaker about being left on hold for now. We do not have a water company, but I will follow up with the gentleman to find out. Mr. Wilkins just provided me information about the no solicitation signs on the Streets and Highway Code that are in Montclair, so we'll share that with the City Council as well. With regards to an item brought up about the letter of credit that's on the consent calendar, the letter of credit was originally due in January, but back in December, we got an extension through April of 2018. The letter of credit, the bank that has the issue of letter of credit through, asked for an extension because they needed some additional information that they wanted the city to put into that letter of credit. So in your staff report, it does say that that letter of credit was extended through April of 2018. So I don't think there's any reason to pull off the agenda. In addition, the City Council did task myself and city staff to find a new location for our 4th of July celebration. We have been working diligently. We have been trying to provide the council and the public a response sooner. Just because of the sensitivity of the new location, we want to find a spot that hopefully can house our 4th of July celebrations in the future on our own property. So, you know, we've had a great partnership with the school district. They've been wonderful to work with, but as folks know, they have a recent bond measure that was adopted here in West Covina Unified, and so this year and the next couple of years we'll have some significant improvements and construction projects on those school sites that could impair our ability to have 4th of July celebrations. So moving forward, the 4th of July celebrations are going to be held at Big League Dreams. So the city staff was able to confirm that. We worked with the fire department to make sure that there was no safety concerns about having that at the location. They're quite confident that that is a good location. It is on city property, and you know, when that facility was originally designed and built, we wanted to have more city activities and events there. So this is a great way to get the public to come over to Big League Dreams. So 4th of July this year will be held at Big League Dreams. If there's any other questions, I think some of the other items were addressed. We'll come up, especially with the homeless, under that staff report. And with that, we can continue with the rest of the agenda.
Any comments from council members? Okay, let's go to the consent agenda. Is there anyone that wishes to take an item off? Is there a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Warshon, second by Mr. Toma, to approve the consent agenda as presented. I will be voting against item number 8. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, it's approved. Again, please note me as a no on number 8. We are now on item number 17, right, which is the end of, wow, see, we're moving right along, Tony. Yeah. And this is a public hearing that consists of an amendment to Chapter 26 of the West Covina Municipal Code related to temporary signs. Will the city clerk verify that proper legal notice has been given?
So verified.
Okay, at this time I will open the public hearing on the code amendment, number 1602. There will first be a presentation from staff, and then we'll hear from those in favor and those opposed. Mr. Freeland, who is presenting the staff report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have our planning director, Jeff Anderson, to provide that report.
Mr. Anderson?
Good evening. We'll start out with technical difficulties. I'm going to go ahead and start. There's a PowerPoint, and hopefully Sean will have that up in a minute. This is a code amendment 1602 regarding temporary signs. The proposal is to amend the municipal code to comply with the U.S. Supreme Court ruling in Reed v. Town of Gilbert and other cases relating to the First Amendment protection for signs. The City Council initiated a code amendment on February 16th, 2016. The Planning Commission did review this code amendment on January 23rd, 2018, and I'll cover that a little bit further down in my presentation. The plaintiff in the Reed case argued that the Town of Gilbert in Arizona's sign code violated the First Amendment as content-based regulation. So we should be on. Okay, we're online now. So that was what the plaintiff argued in that court case. Gilbert's sign code designated several categories of non-commercial signs for different treatment. And this is normal for a sign code to have done. Ideological signs, political signs, temporary directional signs, and garage sale signs were among the categories singled out in Gilbert's sign code. And indeed, we have the same kind of categories in our code. The court held that on its face value, the town's sign code is a content-based regulation of speech, and thus there was no need to consider the government's justifications or purposes for enacting the code to determine whether it was subject to strict scrutiny. Thus, the town's code was invalidated, at least in part, leaving no regulations in place on the categories of signs covered by the code. So that shows the importance of why we want to address this. Planning staff has worked with the City Attorney's Office to prepare the amendments to the municipal code. The sign standards section of the municipal code includes lots of standards and is quite lengthy, keeping in mind that generally we're talking about temporary signs here, not permanent signs, and much of the sign code is about permanent signs. We're not covering the whole sign code. I think I printed it out, something like 65 pages. So we're just covering the sections that are being affected by this. Again, to reiterate, this is mostly about temporary signs. The sign standards are located in Chapter 26, which is the zoning section of the municipal code, in Article 7. The proposed amendments affect some of the temporary sign standards. The temporary non-commercial signs section addresses political signs. The current code allows temporary non-commercial signs. So temporary non-commercial signs is a type of sign that political signs fall under. It's not the only type of sign under that definition or that category. Non-commercial signs to be allowed, I'm sorry, let me start that again. The current code allows temporary non-commercial signs to be installed in the city-owned parkway between a property and a street curb. Based on the Reed decision, in addition to political signs, all other types of non-commercial signs could be placed in that same location. Staff in the city's attorney's office are recommending these types of signs then not be allowed in the public parkways. We did a survey of some surrounding, most close proximity cities around us to see what their current standards were, and I would say some of them may be in the process of considering changes as well. But of the 6 cities we surveyed, 4 prohibit, and there's 2 of them that allow signs, political signs or temporary non-commercial signs in pretty much the same way that we do. So now I'm going to go through the 15 sections of the code that we would change, and I'm going to go through them fairly quickly. Some of them are not very significant. And I won't necessarily read the section, but number 1, it's regarding the purpose, which is the beginning section of the sign code, and provides the purpose and findings that support the sign standards. The amendment here would add a new section that would provide a finding on the provision of new housing and the ability of buyers and renters to find opportunities for housing, justifying the need for a temporary signage for subdivisions. It is important to include this section to provide the finding for why residential developments are allowed off-site signage. To be clear, that's residential developments, not for sale signs on houses. We're not talking about signs on private property. That's talking about signs on public property. The next one's on political signs. Amendment would embellish the definition of political sign to provide greater clarity. There's a substitution clause that's added as number 3. A statement will be added to the code that non-commercial signs are permitted in the same ways as commercial signs. 4, under prohibited signs, this is a cleanup. There's some references that are incorrect, and we're just changing those references so they're the correct references. Under prohibited signs, again, under 5, the reference to allow non-commercial signs in the right-of-way has been removed. Number 6, temporary non-commercial signs. A section of the code establishes standards for political and other types of non-commercial signs. This section has been amended to remove the allowance of non-commercial signs in the public right-of-way. Number 7, temporary non-commercial signs. Subsection D is deleted as it expresses the size of signs allowed in the parkways. And then 8, again, temporary signs. It's renumbering some sections because of the deletions. And number 9, renumbering those sections. 10, temporary non-commercial signs. Subsection is deleted, which refers to signs not being allowed prior to 75 days before an event, because it's temporary signs. Now it's not necessarily about a particular event. 11, under temporary non-commercial signs, renumbering the signs or the sections, and has been expanded to require non-commercial signs to be removed 10 days after the event to which the sign relates, consistent with another court case that required notice to property owners prior to removal of signs by the city. And 12 is the abatement of illegal signs, which is kind of a continuation of the former, would be revised to provide specific steps in cases where signs have been left up for more than 10 days after an event. 13, this is more of a cleanup thing, basically having to do with banners. There's a reference in the banner table to an expiration date. We want to delete that. That wouldn't have any effect on how we allow banners now. We've been allowing them in the same manner for the past 20 years. but there's a date there that causes some confusion. And then 14, regarding flags. The amended code removes the allowed category of flags, such as government, public institution, nonprofit, and that's in response to the Reed case regarding content neutrality. And then lastly, signs in residential zones, also about flags. The amended code removes the prohibited categories of flags, commercial messages, in response to the Reed case. Planning Commission held a public hearing on January 23rd of this year. No public comment was received at that hearing. The commissioners discussed the Supreme Court decision in Reed v. Town of Gilbert, the requirement for content-neutral sign regulations, issues with allowing non-commercial signs in the public right-of-way, and giving property owners a 24-hour notice before removing a sign. At the conclusion of the hearing, the commission voted 3-0 to recommend approval of the code amendment to the City Council. In conclusion, generally, the amendments to the code are in response to the Reed decision, and secondarily, in some cleanup of some references. And lastly, the city does have discretion regarding allowing political signs in the public right-of-way, but if allowed, the city cannot restrict the type or the content on those signs. So that concludes the presentation. City Attorney was very helpful in preparing this, and I'm sure might have some response to some of the questions if we have those, and I'd be happy to answer any questions as well.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes, Jeff. What I'd like to know is, in the past, how big of a problem has this been for temporary signs for the city? I mean, do they come down usually after their 10 days or whatever it is? And non-political, the other type of signs that go into tree wells and stuff like that, what kind of problem has the city had in the past with those?
That's a good question. I think we've had some difficulties with signs being removed, and I know we've had issues with some types of temporary non-commercial signs that are advertising events, parties, kind of things. A lot of times they're outside of town, and so it does take time with our code enforcement people to go clean up those signs. And now there's a process that we put in the code that wouldn't just allow them to take them down. If it's on private property, they'd have to notify.
If I may elaborate as well, I know during the election cycle, the city clerk's office provides information where signage can be put up for political signs. And I will tell you, every time there's an election, there's always some candidates, not by necessarily themselves, but they usually hire companies to place the signs out there. And that they end up in maintenance districts, paseos at times, other locations on city property. And so typically what will happen is the code enforcement will collect those signs, they'll take them to the city yard, and they call the candidate to come pick them up. So that has occurred, and that happens every election.
That's actually, though, kind of a separate issue, though, because this deals with the issue of temporary signs, political, the speech being political and commercial being equal, as far as we do it in the thing. It's a little different, though. I mean, that problem's going to happen no matter what, probably. So I'm just saying that this ordinance wouldn't necessarily solve that. When people are not putting signs where they belong. The goal here, my understanding is the goal here, maybe correct me, is to make sure, not political signs, but because the commercial signs are linked to that they don't go up. Isn't that really what the goal of this is?
That's correct.
Okay. Mr. Toma?
Yeah, a couple things. I guess one is just fault to what Mayor Spence just said. The reason for this is not so much the political signs, although I understand that is somewhat a problem every year. It's because of this court decision that says now you can't limit the other signs if you're going to allow this particular kind of sign. Before, we've allowed political signs as kind of a protected temporary type thing around the elections. Now the Supreme Court has said you can't do that because you can't target one type of sign, e.g. political signs, and so if you're going to allow political signs, you have to allow everything. That's the reason why this is being brought forward to us together. The second thing that I wanted to ask was, so are we now getting rid of the whole idea of temporary sign? It was a little bit confusing to me that, like, I know this thing about putting them in the tree wells, but we used to have this sort of idea of a temporary sign tied around election season, where we would justify the allowance of political signs 70-something days before the election, then after that you had to take them out. So does this just get rid of this whole idea of temporary signs? It was kind of confusing to me in terms of what is being allowed.
Let me start with that, if I could, Mr. Mayor. It doesn't get rid of the notion of temporary signs. It levels the playing field about temporary signs, and it takes out several content-based provisions. It also takes away the ability to put those temporary signs in the public right-of-way. So people are still going to have temporary signs. They're going to be in people's front yards. They're going to be in other places where they're allowed to be, so long as the property owner has consented. And we will still have some rules about that, so that, you know, they can be removed, and we want the banners to be nice and all those sorts of things. But yes, there still will be temporary signs, but this will level the playing field and keep them out of the public right-of-way.
Mr. Wu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, I just want to understand the purpose of this amendment. Basically, okay, sound like the arguments over here, the question more like political, okay, sign. Okay, but my question would be, the purpose was to try to keep the city nice and pretty, so you don't have to sign all the places. Am I right? This is one of the.
That's one of the purposes of the sign code.
Because you don't want the
yes.
people put a sign all the places. The problem I have, okay, I want to make sure, for example, people put open house sign. Okay, that's a temporary sign. Okay, and then they put in the right of way to direct people to the location, and there's temporarily. Okay, possible one day they have to take it away. So we need to give them duration, how long you can keep the sign over there, because they might do open house again tomorrow, they live over there overnight. I don't think it's legal for them to, they should take away, okay, when they have, like, for example, 3 hours of open house, so they will clean up, okay, all those open house signs. And second thing is, the new subdivision with a new home. You see, they put sign all the places in our city to direct to their new home. I don't know, is that legal, okay, to this temporary sign, because you see the direction from, okay, and the camera and the Susa and direct you into, okay, on the hillside when they have development over there. So I want to understand, is that, I don't think that is legal because it's temporary sign, and can we allow them to have all this direction and all the way into their property? So this is my issue. So I think the purpose is try to keep our city nice and clean, so we don't have, not only during the campaign, okay, election, but more of regular time, okay, and how can we keep our city nice and neat? Am I right?
You are correct. The purpose of this code amendment is to address the court case that the Supreme Court made. It's not to change the standards that we have in our code. So for real estate signs, actually nothing before you tonight would modify any of our standards for real estate signs. There's continual allowance for the types of signs that you described. The subdivision direction signs are still in the code, and that's one of the reasons. One of the first things I covered was the purpose and the findings about the purpose, and we included a direct statement in there why we regulate real estate signs differently for the benefit of the house, for the benefit of housing and people to be able to find housing. So nothing before you tonight would change any of the standards that we have had in place.
So the question over here, since you say temporarily, the point is this: when I see the subdivision for the new home, they put the directions, put over there forever. Okay, so I don't know if that is okay or not. When I see they direct from Grand, they see the direction, okay, into their property, and I remember I saw the sign all the times over there. Suppose the open house should be 1 day, okay, the duration. I think we should have the duration for temporary sign, or they just hire some people to put that kind of thing.
Right,
okay?
right.
Yeah, I can hire me for $10 per hour doing that thing. So, but my point is this, okay, I don't think, okay, when you talk about this thing, you want to keep the city nice and clean, so you should be equally applied to everybody, including the developer, including the open house sign, including all this. Allow them, but they should have a duration of time.
So those are two different things, open house and subdivision directional signs or development directional signs. That's approved. Generally, we approve those for the duration of the construction of the subdivision. So once the subdivision is completed, they're supposed to be taken down. And that's what our approval would state. So they're not allowed to be up there perennially or forever. They are temporary signs.
So they're allowed to put the direction on our street from Grand or Citrus?
We have allowed that. You know, in my experience, very few subdivisions have asked for that, but I think in the past 20 years or so, we've had 3 or 4 subdivisions that have asked for it. And I think that's going to become less and less the norm because of the way the development is happening and the lack of new subdivisions, if you would, for single-family houses. But it's still in there. We do have the process that's allowed, and we have approved it in the past.
Can I ask the question about, there's the exceptions for the real estate signs, but there's not exceptions, for example, a garage sale or for a car wash that someone's raising money for a funeral or anything like that. And so what's the logic behind not carving out exemptions for other temporary signs? And just the real estate one having the most powerful content, I guess, speech of all, since they're the only ones exempted.
Well, every time you chip away at the block of ice, you make it smaller, and eventually it goes away. So the more exceptions we have, the more problems we would have having that upheld in court. Any exception has to have a relatively high finding of need. And because of the housing crisis in California and the need to ensure people can find housing that we're allowing to develop in our community, that's a justification. Supporting fundraising for cheerleaders and other things are not compelling
Car wash
enough.
for a funeral? I don't know.
I don't think the courts would find them sufficiently compelling. There has to be a compelling government interest to make that kind of an exception. So at some point, the exceptions would swallow the rule, and we would be right back where we were, only worse.
What's the, and I don't know if this was in the code previously, but it says that the signs can be placed on private property with written permission. And I had a question about that, simply because in my experience, most of the time I think it's more verbal than written, you know, and so I was a little confused by that. When I was reading
I believe
through
you're
the
referring to something that's probably in the code now, which if you wanted to change that, that would be fine with us. We're not.
I mean, with the permission, I mean, I don't know. I never want to get into the fact, oh, show me your written permission slips for the signs. Oh my gosh, you know.
I think clearly the point is to make sure that you're not just putting signs out that
Right,
the
oh, yeah.
owner knows about it. But
I get that. I get that. Yeah, my signs came down pretty quick after I put them up, so I don't know what this thing is talking about. But it didn't seem a problem. So I did have a question about that as well. Are there any other questions? Okay, at this time, is there anyone that wishes to speak in favor of this amendment? We're coming back for questions later. This is for the public. Anyone? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? I'll close the compelling public testimony, and we'll go back to council discussion. Does anyone have any comments or desires on this? Mr.
Thank you. So just to be clear, to me, this comes down to a decision of, do we want to either have no signs in the tree wells or basically have to allow everything in the tree wells? Is that what it comes down to?
Yep. And just to be clear, it's not specifically tree wells. It's the parkway between the property line and the street. So it could be a grass area, it could be a other type of landscaped area.
Or even a median, theoretically.
Just my comment is that I do want a good-looking city, and I don't want anyone being able to put up whatever they want in one of those public areas and not have the ability to say, hey, that's inappropriate, you got to take that down. So I also think that the political signs are overvalued in terms of their ability to get the word out or do whatever. So given the choice between the two, I'd rather not have our city be littered with a bunch of signs that make things look unpleasant. And so I will be supporting the proposed ordinance.
So are you making a motion then?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So, I don't know if there's more comments, but I will.
Yeah, I'm sure there is, but is there a motion?
I second. I will move to move ordinance number 2332 to amend Chapter 26, Article 7 of the West Covina Municipal Code relating to signs.
Okay, is there a second? Second. Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Toma and seconded by Mr. Wu. Any more discussion from council? I will be voting against this ordinance. I would rather have a messy city that values political signs than have a city that we can't participate in the public process as much as we would like. Whether they're overvalued or not, that's an opinion. Didn't stop you from buying a lot of them. And so I think it's important that we allow people to participate in the political process, and that means we have to put up with a garage sale sign or so. I'm fine with that. So I'll be voting against this ordinance. Any other comments or questions? Let's go ahead and have a roll call vote.
Johnson?
No.
Toma?
Aye.
Warshaw?
Aye.
Wu?
Aye.
Spence?
No. Motion passes 3-2. Item number 18. The report on impacts of district elections on municipal code. Do we want to have a report, or I think this is just probably more for council discussion? Because there's so many different things that are just the same that don't matter. But,
yeah.
But the one thing that's glaring is we have to deal with the issue of the mayoral rotation, because the standards that were set up by, in that large system, make it difficult to figure out how each district gets represented. I mean, that's just my opinion. We could talk about some of the other things too, but I think that's the one thing that's kind of glaring when we look at this. So I don't know what the council wants to do, though. Mr. Johnson?
I know that's going to be a little difficult thing that we have to discuss, but I feel that this shouldn't even, our rotation should take effect after the 2020 election. Now, the reason why I say that, because
you're going to be mayor next.
Well, yeah, that's true too, and so would Councilman Wu. And then when you do on 2020, I feel that the problem is when we're doing this now, one district's going to get more votes than another district. So it's going to be hard to say which one has the most votes. Right now, the rare rotation is who has the most votes, and that's in the seniority they roll in. There's different ways you can do it. You can do the three that are up for election. They can, no matter who has the most votes, they can draw numbers, say this is 1, 2, and 3, or district is, or figure it that way. Out it has to go. And then the next 2 and the next 2 years, which they can flip a coin too, say you'll be mayor this, and then I'm the following. There's ways that we can figure it out, and we have to do it, but I feel that it shouldn't be till 2020 when we take that effect, because myself and Councilman Wu were on here, and our time really isn't up till 2020, and I figure that's only fair. And that's just my opinion.
I don't think we have a motion, but any other comments, or does anyone want to do anything on this, or just wait, do nothing? Do nothing, council? Everything good? Is there anything else that anyone wants to discuss on this as far as looking at the different election stuff to get it out of the way so we don't have to deal with it right before the election? Okay, we're just going to go to item number 19 then. Yes, item number 19. Is there a report on this? Or no, this.
We can have one. We both have the city attorney and Ms. Bresciani can give you a staff report. Absolutely.
Well, I mean, I have some comments on this. I mean, I'm actually kind of stunned that the negativity and the view that this is just the only thing that we're doing about the homeless issue in West Covina. I'm kind of stunned by that because this is actually not directed at necessarily at homeless people. I mean, we don't know who's leaving property unattended at different places. This provides an avenue for it to be collected and protected instead of just left out there. And so I'm actually kind of offended, especially because the county, for getting $355 million, has so far managed to get us about $30,000 to help participate in a grant process with the COG, out of that money. And so we're not getting a fair return on the sales taxes that are being generated in West Covina to help our residents from the county, to be quite honest. There's no percentage coming back like there is with Metro or any of the other initiatives that have been passed. It just isn't happening that way. And so, when we're dealing with homeless, we have the bike team that's out there that tells people where they can get services. We have it on our website so individuals can have it. We're actually going to have a forum at the end of February so that we can inform people on how they can help people in these situations. And, the idea that there's a one-size-fits-all, I think, is ridiculous and offensive. But I do think, this is something that we need to talk about. And so I don't know what the council would like to do. You got questions? You want to hear the report? Yes. Mr. Toma loves reports.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council.
I will oblige, Mr. Toma. At the December 19th City Council meeting, Council directed staff to return with an update to the city's municipal code to address camping in public spaces and include language regarding storage of personal property. Staff has expressed the difficulty in balancing individual rights of those experiencing homelessness while ensuring public safety and access to public areas for residents and businesses. On one hand, unattended property in public places throughout the city interferes with access to such public areas and to businesses and thereby negatively affects quality of life. The city bears the burden of maintaining clean and safe public areas, eliminating trash and water pollution, as well as providing a safe and inviting space for business owners and patrons. The unattended personal property in public areas also constitutes a threat to public health and safety because it may attract vermin, creates a potential transmission of communicable diseases, such as hepatitis A, and interferes with safe passage for pedestrians and the disabled across public rights-of-way. And my computer stopped working. On the other hand, the individual owners of the unattended personal property have a protectable possessory interest in property that they leave unattended in public places and parks, because the property may include important items such as identification papers, heirlooms, medications, toiletries, and clothing. Engaging in civil enforcement efforts to protect the rights of property owners and ensure equal access to public property is extremely expensive and causes delay in the city's ability to ensure these rights. The language of the proposed ordinance is derived from a California Supreme Court decision upholding the validity of a similar ordinance from the City of Santa Ana, Toby v. City of Santa Ana, and has been adapted to also be in compliance with a recent Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruling holding that the City of Los Angeles practice of summarily destroying personal property left in public areas violates due process, Levan v. City of Los Angeles. The proposed ordinance includes detailed provisions relating to notice and post-impound due process for personal property that is impounded. These provisions are included to comply with the requirements of the Levan v. City of Los Angeles ruling. It should be noted that the proposed ordinance is distinguishable from the City of Los Angeles in two ways. It does not call for the immediate destruction of impounded personal property, and based on the Levan case, whenever possible, the city will be providing notice in a prominent location to advise the owner of the property that it has been impounded. Additionally, state law requires that found property be held for 90 days. The proposed ordinance includes provisions that relate to the handling of found property in compliance with the requirements of state law and which should also satisfy the federal limitations on seizures of personal property in public areas. The proposed ordinance allows for the destruction of dangerous or perishable property, and contraband or evidence of crime that is found within any impounded personal property is subject to confiscation pursuant to state or federal law. The ordinance also provides that abandoned property is not subject to impound and will be destroyed. This will only apply when property is clearly and unmistakably abandoned. Personal property found unattended or unlawfully stored in a public area will be safely stored by the police department. A receipt shall be issued to the person, or the police department shall notify the owner if his or her identity is reasonably ascertainable that it possesses the personal property and where it may be claimed. So, for example, the receipt system is helpful not only for interactions with the police department, it is also helpful for emergency medical service calls with the fire department. When our paramedics have to transport a person experiencing homelessness, we can provide them with a receipt and store belongings accordingly. This helps prevent theft also in the public rights-of-way. It is recommended that the City Council take the following action. Introduce the proposed regular ordinance number 2334 for its first reading to be read by title only and waive further reading. Introduce urgency ordinance number 2333 and adopt effective immediately. Adoption of the urgency ordinance is recommended to cover the period between the first reading of the proposed regular ordinance and its anticipated effective date. An urgency ordinance is recommended as an ordinance that is effective immediately as deemed necessary to preserve the health, safety, and welfare of the residents and visitors of the City of West Covina. It is also recommended that a non-urgency ordinance be adopted in the event that the grounds for the urgency ordinance are held up by a court to not be valid. In closing, I would like to note that just yesterday, a federal court ruled to stop the clearing of the encampments along the 57 freeway in Santa Ana Riverbed in Orange County. And I know there are concerns about that, so at this time I will let our City Attorney, Kim Hall-Barlow, weigh in on that.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the recent decision of the court was essentially to put the burden on the public entities involved to demonstrate that they weren't, in effect, simply criminalizing homelessness. the difficulty for you in making a decision like this is striking the right balance. In this situation, obviously, we're not trying to criminalize homelessness. What we are trying to do at the council's direction is to find a way to protect access to public property while simultaneously protecting the rights to private property of those individuals who, for whatever reason, may leave their property out somewhere in the public. With respect to camping, the California Supreme Court has upheld provisions allowing restriction, including citation, for camping on public property or camping on private property without consent of the owner. The federal courts have been more lenient in terms of, not towards cities, in terms of requiring that cities demonstrate, for example, that there are sufficient beds available for everybody who they would otherwise cite for sleeping or sitting on the sidewalk. That was the Levan case. We're not proposing that you start citing people for sleeping on the sidewalk or sitting on the sidewalk. What we've brought forward to you is what we hope is a measured approach, but that's for you to decide. We believe that the provisions are lawful, and certainly our intent is to enforce them in a lawful way. I hope that helps.
So I have a comment. It just, you know, in the LA Times today, there was an article about a federal court judge. I mean, it was just bizarrely just today that came out. And there's an article yesterday about a similar issue. But today's article was about a federal court judge who basically called in 4 cities from Orange County and Orange County itself saying, explain and prove to me that you're not criminalizing homelessness by citing these people for being homeless. And I actually think that the provisions about property disposal make sense. You know, nobody wants to see these things out there. They're an eyesore. They're there for a long time. And they're public health hazards and whatnot. I think we have to do something about that. And by putting it in writing, we do actually give some due process rights here by setting forth. And you can know this is where you go. If you don't have notice right there, you know you go to the police station to figure out where your property is, et cetera. If it's something you actually want back. In many cases, it's going to be abandoned and no one's going to want it back. So I do think that makes sense. What I have a problem with and I have a concern with, especially with what the federal court did today, was the citation aspect of it. By citing someone, because I realize these citations may start small, but with the court fees, it can be, my understanding is like $200, $300. And we're talking about, I mean, let's be real here. We are talking about homeless people who in all likelihood don't have a lot of cash on them. And so the problem with these citations is that they can grow into, you know, from my understanding, you know, bench warrants, which can be misdemeanor and the cost can escalate, and it does act as an impediment to people getting jobs and so forth later on. So to me, the property part makes sense. We got to dispose of this property. It's a public health hazard. It's an eyesore. All these other things. It's abandoned. But I have a problem with the financial citation. First of all, I just don't think it's going to have any impact as well. Like by giving somebody a ticket, and we talked about giving people tickets before, like, okay, I'll pay a ticket because I want to keep my record clean and so forth. But what's the chances that these people that would be cited are going to pay a ticket? In many cases, there was also, the article explained, they don't even know for sure whether they're going to get a ticket because I guess the officer has some leeway in terms of when they actually issue it, and they wouldn't even know where to go to find out whether the citation's been ordered, where to appear and whatnot. I mean, I think word will get around that if you have things missing, here's where you go to get your things. But in terms of understanding the court system, paying off a ticket, I just think that's almost an impossibility, let alone an actual deterrent to people because it's just a piece of paper that they know they can't afford to pay anyway. So that's my problem with respect to the I'm fine with pretty much the entirety of the ordinance, especially with respect to the abandoned property part, but I do have a problem with the citations and the financial aspect of it.
Any other questions or comments from council members?
Mr. Thank you. I happen to exactly agree with Councilman Stone on this. You know, I don't have a problem with cleaning up the streets. You know, we see that. It's a problem. But the problem about fining our homeless, give them a citation or fining them, this is over the top as far as I'm concerned. Now, if that has to stay in there along with the whole ordinance, then I can't agree with it. if we can kind of separate the two. We can take this out and then go with the part about cleaning up and putting the property in storage for them and letting them know where it's at. This I can go along with, but I just can't go along with finding our homeless because, first of all, they're homeless. They don't have an income or they wouldn't be homeless. So I say if they had an income, they'd be doing something. They wouldn't probably living on our streets. So if something where you can separate it, then I'd be willing to go along with it. But if it all has to stay in as one package, I can't agree with it tonight.
Mr. Wu?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, I'm extremely sympathize the homeless issue. Okay, I remember when I was young in the college. Okay, and I have a hard time to find a place to stay because it's summertime. I have no place to go, and I don't think my relative want me to stay in their house. So I have to drive around the car and find a place to stay. And school doesn't even want me to put my stove, my thing in the school, so I have to remove everything in my car. So I understand, okay, the homeless, okay, issue because, okay, that's a problem, okay. But again, let's temporary homeless compare with the professional or so-called long-term homeless, the problem we have. Then we cannot one side we criticize, we have a major homeless issue in our city. We continue to growing the homeless in our city hall, in the street, and this and that. But another side, we don't want to face how to, okay, do the thing, okay, and we want to do the, okay, Mr. Nice Guy said, we don't do this, we don't let, but we will continue see this homeless population grow. So we need to find a way. One way is we need to kind of have a coordinates to make sure our street, okay, our public places, we cannot have a thing over there without any, okay, and law enforcement. Okay, we need to clean up all those issues, but at the same time, we need to place all those homeless people to some kind of shelter or some places, and we can help them. Okay, but again, we need to help the people they're willing to be helped. A lot of problem is, okay, some people just, it's their habit, they just have some couple issue, a drug issue, alcohol issue, or some other mental issue. So how can we help those people, they're willing to go to shelter, okay, but at the same time, okay, we need to make sure our city, this homeless issue can be resolved. So I will support this coordinates, okay, and I think we need to face the reality about this issue. We cannot continue to sweep this under the rug. We continue complaining about our city down to the drain. We have this homeless issue, but at the same time, we don't want to do anything. So anyway, I will support this ordinance.
Mr. Worshop?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree that we need to have an ordinance so that we can remove property because it's not only an eyesore, it can also become a health issue. As Councilmember Thomas stated, though, I have a problem with the fines. And what I would like to see is for us to implement just is to take the fines away. Let's see if it works without having a fine for it. And if it doesn't work, we can always, at that point in time, put in an amount for a citation. I think getting your property removed and having to go over to City Hall to get it, that will probably stop a lot of the problems that we have today. But there are many different types of homelessness. Those people who like being out on the street, those people that are temporarily looking to find shelter. And in most instances, the people that are looking to find shelter, we can find that for them today. If you talk to our police department, it's the ones that we primarily have in the city that are living around the city are people that don't want housing. They want to be, quote unquote, free to do what they want to do, when they want to do it, where they want to do it. And even if you had housing for them, they wouldn't accept it. So you need something on the books to handle those issues when they actually abandon their property. It doesn't stop people from having property. They're going to put it in some kind of a cart or, you know, backpacks, bicycles, and they're going to take it with them. And they are allowed to do that. But this will stop them from leaving it there, especially for long periods of time.
Is there a motion? Is there a motion from somebody on this then?
Yes, so I'd like to amend the part about.
You want to make a motion that contains this?
Right. I want to make a motion to amend the citation fine section.
Can we approve in a first reading the stuff without the fines in it?
We can actually, if there is.
Because I think that's what he's trying to do.
I have some proposed language.
Okay.
In the penalty section 19-14.160, I would change it to read, violations of this chapter shall not be punishable criminally, or you could say punishable pursuant to the provisions of section 1-37 and or 1-37.1 of this code. Those are the ones that make violations of the code either an infraction or a misdemeanor. Violations of this chapter may be corrected by any non-criminal available legal or equitable remedy, each remedy not exclusive of any other remedy.
Is that your motion, Mr. Warshaw?
That would be my motion to introduce those ordinance number 2334 and 2333 is amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any more discussion? I just want to say one thing here, and I'll vote for this, but I can't believe that there's some members on this council that are so concerned about fines that they had no problems putting a $1,000 fine on people that had little poppers for New Year's Eve or had a safe and sane firework in their car as they were traveling somewhere, or had no problem fining people that left tools in their truck, you know, and so, but now suddenly they've come around on the issue of fees and on fines, and I hope you would do it on all the other things that you approve up here when you do these ordinances. So with that, let's go ahead. Is there any objection to consent? Then it's approved 5-0. Anything else on this? Council?
If I might read the titles quickly?
Yes, please.
Ordinance number 2334, ordinance of the City Council of the City of West Covina, California, adding Chapter 19-14, unlawful camping and storage of personal property of Title 19, street, sidewalks, and public places of the West Covina Municipal Code regarding camping and storage of personal property in public places. And ordinance number 2333, an urgency ordinance of the City Council of the City of West Covina, California, adding Chapter 19-14, unlawful camping and storage of personal property of Title 19, streets, sidewalks, and public places of the West Covina Municipal Code regarding camping and storage of personal property in public places. The urgency ordinance will take effect immediately. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, item number 20. Right? Do you want to do a presentation on this, Mr. Toma, or do you want to just have a discussion, or you want to do a presentation? You want a presentation?
I think Chino's waiting to do one. Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, if I can introduce our Public Works Director, Chino Kasuni, will give a brief report.
Yeah, I can provide a 30-minute presentation.
I messed with him.
He said 30 minutes, is that okay?
35.
Actually, we're doing pretty good. Actually, doing pretty good.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of Council. This item was continued from the January 16th Council meeting as the City Council requested additional information regarding Smart Level 2 and Level 3 DC fast-charging electric vehicle stations. The city was awarded a South Coast Air Quality Management District, or SCAQMD grant in the amount of $54,199 for installation of 8 Level 2 EV charging stations. The locations will be here at City Hall, Plaza West Covina parking structure, and Big League Dreams, or BLD. SCAQMD is partnering with cities and counties to jumpstart clean transportation projects that will be needed to successfully implement the 2016 Air Quality Management Plan, or AQMP. The AQMP provides the blueprint for how the region will achieve federal air quality standards. So part of that AQMP is the accelerated transition to zero emission and near zero emission vehicles, along with the necessary infrastructure to meet federal air quality standards by 2025. In addition, the state of California has a goal of reaching 1.5 million zero-emission vehicles by 2025. EV charging stations can provide many public benefits, including increased travel for EV drivers, fostering clean energy deployment, reduced greenhouse gas emissions, reduced noise pollution, reduced heat emissions, reduced fuel and maintenance costs for the EV owner, and improved local economic development. For this particular project, the unit that will be installed are turbodock units as manufactured by AeroVironment. The units are modular. They can easily be configured for any variety of parking layouts with the ability to add ports as the number of EV drivers increase. They are cost-effective as the prices range between $3,000 for single-port units and $4,000 for dual-port units. They utilize Bluetooth technology controlled through a smartphone app that can manage user access and payment. There are no monthly or recurring access fees. The units come with a 3-year warranty, and they normally last up to 20 years. To date, no issues of vandalism have been reported with the existing charging units here at City Hall. Use of the existing charging stations at City Hall is currently limited to 4 hours, while use of the charging stations at the mall is limited to 2 hours. Because it takes about 4 hours to charge an EV vehicle from 0 to 100%, staff is recommending to keep the maximum 4-hour restrictions here at City Hall and BLD. However, because it is important to make the charging stations accessible to as many EV drivers going to the mall as possible, staff is recommending keeping the maximum 2-hour restrictions at Plaza West Covina. Staff will work with the police department regarding enforcement of all the time restrictions at all 3 locations. The city pays for electricity costs at City Hall and BLD, while Plaza West Covina pays for the electricity costs for the mall parking structure. There are no separate meters, so we don't really know the cost associated with existing meters. However, industry experts are estimating that electricity costs are approximately $300 per charging station per year. So that's about less than $1 a day. And maintenance costs are approximately $100 per charging station per year. So for this project, the estimated annual electricity costs for 11 stations is $3,300, and the annual maintenance costs is $1,300. Most California public agencies that provide EV charging stations charge a fee. So most agencies charge a flat fee per hour, which is anywhere between $1 to $2 per hour, or a fee per kilowatt hour, 20 cents to 59 cents per kilowatt hour. The revenues can be used to offset electricity costs and maintenance costs. Because the turbodock units that we are using for this particular project, they don't have the ability to track user charging times and consumption, staff is recommending that council adopt a charging fee of $4 per session. So that's based on an average fee of $1 per hour. On December 5th, 2017, the city received 5 bids ranging from $92,400 to $129,000. Urban Professional Builders, Inc. was the lowest responsible bidder. They have completed similar projects for the County of Los Angeles and the Los Angeles Neighborhood Initiative. They have a valid contractor's license. Their bid was originally valid for 60 days and would have expired yesterday. We reached out to them and they agreed to extend their bid for another 60 days. The additional information that council requested, we looked into the pros and cons of Smart Level 2 and Level 3 fast charging stations. Smart Level 2 EV charging stations provide a higher level of customer service and management capabilities for both the operators and the users. The smart charging stations are capable of tracking energy usage, such as length of charging, electricity consumption, electricity costs, They can also determine when the stations are not being used and can divert that power to other stations that are occupied, identify operations and maintenance requirements, monitor charging behaviors, and collecting payment. In addition, the smart charging stations are capable of network connectivity, which will allow operators to manage, track, and monitor multiple charging stations from a remote location. So this will allow parking enforcement to enforce time limit restrictions on use of these smart charging stations. The smart level 2 charging stations, they're more expensive. They cost between $6,000 for single ports and $8,000 for dual ports. So if the proposed turbodock units are replaced with the smart charging stations, the cost of the project will increase by approximately $30,000. And this does not include hardware and software costs associated with network connectivity. Level 3 fast charging station offer a convenient option by providing a full charge in less than 30 minutes compared to 4 hours for level 2 stations. Because the fast charging stations require 208 volt and 480 volt AC three-phase electric input, I'm not sure what that really means, they may require extensive electrical infrastructure upgrades, making these the most expensive among the different charging options. Also, only EVs or electric vehicles that are equipped with SHAdeMO or SAE combo fast charge receptacles can use these stations, making their accessibility limited and not available to all the EV drivers. The DC fast charging stations, they cost anywhere from $60,000 to $100,000, depending on electrical system upgrades that may be required. Finally, the AQMD grant was specific for level 2 charging stations, so thus level 3 charging stations are not eligible. Staff will look into applying for an SCE grant under the Urban DC Fast Charger Clusters program for the downtown area. So the total estimated project cost is $124,410. Funding will come from the SC AQMD grant and AB 2766 local return funds. Staff is requesting that Council appropriate an additional $15,742 from AB 2766 fund balance to cover the shortfall in funding. There is no impact to the general fund. The total estimated annual and electricity costs for the 13 stations is $5,200. If Council decides to charge fees, total estimated revenues for the charging stations at City Hall and BLD, assuming that Plaza West Covina will not charge fees, is $30,000 annually. If Council decides to charge fees at Plaza West Covina, the city will work with Plaza West Covina to reimburse them for the cost of the electricity and to have some type of revenue sharing structure. That concludes my report. I'm available to answer questions at this time.
Chino, so if we charge for use, and you're talking about a $4 fee, what would we, for the locations at BLD and at the city, what do we expect revenues to be, knowing that they're not going to be going 24 hours a day?
So assuming that, I just did a quick calculation, assuming that there would be turnover of about 2.5 times a day, and that's how I came up with the $30,000. So assuming that there would be about 2.5 or 3 users per day per charging station, so that kind of amounts to the $30,000 annually.
Okay. And although they can't track kilowatts, they can track the hours, right? You said?
Not the units that we are using for this particular project.
So if somebody wanted to go there and they were only going to be there an hour, they'd still have to pay the $4.
So that's correct.
Thank
Mr. Wu?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I think last time we were talking about the issue we have is after we install this, who is going to pay for the maintenance? Where is the money coming from? Do we have that budget? That's the first question. And the second question is, we're talking about if people occupy the space for a long time and they don't drive away, and then we kind of defeat the purpose that we want the people to utilize, so all the people can use. So maybe you have a device, you can 1 hour, 2 hours after that, they started charging you credit card, something. That makes people to move out on that store, so some people can come in to utilize the thing. So I don't know, you guys have designed that thing. So this is a couple of issues. I think last time why we want to postpone it, because we want to see the city can come out, a little bit more detail about who's going to pay for the maintenance, where's the budget coming from, and how you control for the people only stay there for the certain time, and you told me why not this charge only what, 30 minutes or what? How long is the, so they can be and charge and go?
Regarding the first question regarding how to pay for the maintenance costs. So based on what I outlined in the report, the estimated annual maintenance and electricity cost is about $5,200. So the estimated revenues, assuming that you'll have 2.5 to 3 turnovers per day per charging station, the revenues will be about $30,000. So that can be used to offset the electricity and maintenance costs.
So what is the maximum they can stay on the store to charge?
Well, the units that are being specified here, there's no ability to track duration of charging. And that's why it becomes important to work with enforcement. So we'll work with the police department so they can enforce the time restrictions.
Then they increase our police officer burden to kind of do this additional job. I think we should have a mechanism to kind of let people to automatically, an hour, 2 hours, and leave the place. So due to the charge, I think if we can have a device, only allow them, and they will shut off, then people can park there. Otherwise, maybe, Councilman Thoma will park his car forever, can charge over there for overnight because he has an electric car. So I think people might take advantage. This is why I'm trying to kind of eliminate the problem we have.
And that's why there are smart charging stations where you have the ability to do that. And those costs, they're more expensive though, so that's an additional $30,000 to the project. If we change from the ordinary level 2 charging stations to the smart level 2 charging stations. So that doesn't even include the hardware and software costs associated with network connectivity.
Can that be paid by the grant? Like what they try to have us to install this so-called green energy?
Yeah, right now the grant amount that we have is only $54,199, which is not even enough to pay for the whole project. And we are using our own AB 2766 local return money, which comes from AQMD2, to as local match for this project. So we're able to pay for the whole $124,000.
So the grant doesn't even can cover everything. So we have to go to some other places to get the money, and then hopefully, is that been for that?
The AQMD's grant is covering the other AQMD grant is what they're doing, right?
Yeah, the AB 2766 money, that's the one coming from vehicle registration fees. So the city gets about 4%, I think, as part of our local turnback money.
Just a quick question, because I promise I'm going to talk too long. So just quick question. Well, can we wait for maybe another year for technology improve, then and the price go down, then we can put this a little bit more, store why they only feel right now and cost so much money, and then we don't even know what our future will be. Because technologies continue to improve, maybe we can postpone it for a year or two to see that time we can maybe put 10 or 20 entire city.
We have to. As part of the agreement with AQMD, we have to spend the money by April or May of this year. In fact, even if the City Council decides to award this project tonight, we have to request an extension from SEA AQMD to be able to complete the project probably around June or July.
Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2 questions. First of all, I'd like to know, how do we pay, if you don't charge $4 per session, how does it get paid? on. And the other question, like Councilman Wu was suggesting, if we install these now and say next year, whatever, we get another grant or whatever it is, can these be upgraded? Can we use that grant to upgrade the ones we already have, already installed?
First part of your question. So the TurboDock units, they come with Bluetooth technology. So there's a smartphone app that you can use that can collect the payment. So the user will have to input his credit card information, and he will be given an access code to be able to use the unit. So that's kind of how it works.
If I may add, Mr. Mayor and City Council, this is just the first of perhaps many or additional vehicle charging stations the city plans to incorporate. So as technology increases, we'll be buying more modern machines, and then eventually you can start replacing them as well. So the question is, do we want to provide the service today with knowing that we plan to continue doing so and then change it out as it progresses too?
Mr. Worship?
Yeah. So although this isn't the best system, considering the amount of the grant money that we have, I think it's the logical solution to what we're trying to do is to advance the use of electric vehicles. It also solves the problem with the cost of maintaining it. In that there is a charge for it. As far as additional resources for police and fire, where these locations are, they're already being watched both by our police volunteers who do parking enforcement, and they do that at the mall and up at Big League Dreams. And it's also done by our community service officers in those locations. So it would not require any additional people to enforce these rules. So with that, I'll make a motion to approve.
Mr. Mayor, I second.
Been moved by Mr. Warshaw and seconded by Mr. Johnson to approve this. I did have a question. In order to do a fee, don't we have to go through the whole fee study process and all that kind of stuff to make sure you're not making more than it, all that stuff?
We do. If the council wants to give us direction to do that, we would have to bring that forward separately.
Okay, at a different meeting?
If I may suggest, since this project is going to take some time, we'll bring it back as part of your fee schedule, for the annual fee schedule in May or June of this year.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? I'm going to be voting against this. I think at some point we have to draw the line on taking money from working people and giving it to people that are already getting their cars subsidized, and now they get their electricity subsidized and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't make any sense to me. So anyways, let's go ahead and all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Nay? Nay. To approve for 3-2 with Mr. Wu and myself voting no. Okay, we're on our next item, which is item 21, which is a request from myself. Actually, since I asked this to be agendized, the League of Cities has come out against SB 827, but SB 827 would take away the authority of cities and planning commissions to deal with development around transit centers, things defined as transit centers, and would mandate or allow all kinds of different high-density bonuses without any city oversight. So I would like us to go on record as opposing it and joining the league and doing that. Again, I'm glad they're on board now. They weren't when I first asked to have it agendized, but that's what I'd like to recommend. And I'd like to move that.
I'll second it.
It's moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any objection to consent? It's approved 5-0 that we oppose it. Now we're for the long ones. Mr. Wood, item number 22.
I make it quick, okay? Okay. So basically, last year's, in September, we have been invited, to China. We have 7 cities, official visits, including former mayors, Corey Warshaw, and myself, and the business owner, and Bill McIntyre. So we went to a couple of cities, 7 cities, and one of the cities we are planning to sign a friendly city, and due to the mayor is not there, and we have the vice mayor, and we have a tour entire city, and they have the intention to be a friendly city with West Covina. And so when we back to Beijing, and then we have a Beijing phone tie, and then we have an official meeting over there. And that's why in November of last year, we got Beijing as a sister city. Okay, and now, they already request exchange student with us, and we have to arrange, and with a public school, with Covina Valley Unified School and West Covina Unified, and they are planning, see if they have enough time, to do a summer school for that. But other than that, we talked to the South Hill Academy, including, Christ Lutheran Church School, to the middle school. I talked to the principal, and they are willing and planning, say they will receive for middle school. And as for South Hill Academy, they can handle, unlimited 2 or 3 classes for exchange student from Beijing, Fengtai, or even others sister city or friendly city with us. So for that, we should have some busy summer for all the school exchange student come to our city. At the same time, we receive, I think about 3-4 weeks ago, we received and approved from Fushun City. Fushun is about 3 million population in the northeast of China. We went over there to see the beautiful city. That's very industrialized, and they have a water wall. We went to see it's magnificent. I think it's really good for our tourism if we can direct flight from Ontario to Shenyang in China. But right now, hopefully by end of this year, we should have a direct flight to Ontario and to the northeast of China, and hopefully that will bring a lot of revenue to our city. So I want to make a motion, to have a Fushun as our friendly city, and we already have their formal document as intention to be a friendly city with West Covina and signed by their mayor, and they've been request for us to sign by our current mayor, so have this become an intention to be a friendly city. Thank you.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Mr. Mayor, I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded by Mr. Johnson. Any more discussion? Anyone has any items on this? Is there any objection to consent? Okay, it's approved 5-0. Item number 23, request from Councilmember Toma.
Yeah, thank you. This is a request to have a policy, or I'm not sure. Yeah, I guess a policy or a resolution of some sort to just have the forms, the documents, the reports that are required for campaign disclosure to be posted on our website within 72 hours of receipt. There's certain deadlines that everybody has to follow who's doing campaigns. This is for transparency. I know that the clerk would do it as soon as possible, no matter what, but I think it's better to have a policy so that there's direction in terms of what the expectation is, and so the public understands when they can expect to see these things online on our website.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Johnson.
For instance, if I turn mine in a week ahead of anyone else, then mine would have to be on the 72 hours before everybody else's? Is that what we're saying? Or you want all of them at one time? I just want to make a clarification.
That's a good point. I guess I was thinking within 72 hours of the deadline, but I'm not sure if other people have a different idea. I don't know.
If you care about transparency, why wouldn't you put it up? Yeah. We're going to get it. All right. No, I don't know. To me, I think the simple solution is there should be a mechanism where somehow candidates have to upload their forms to the website themselves, to satisfy. That would be the easiest way to deal with it, because when you do electronic filings, in the counties and that kind of stuff, goes on the website automatically, and no one has to do it manually. And that would be, to me, that seems the most logical solution, is to have that kind of process set up where computer savvy to upload a form.
I have a hard time using mine.
Okay. Well, but I think, to me, that seems like the easiest kind of solution is to have some kind of mechanism where those things are automatically uploaded by the deadline, and then, they're up there and they've been loaded, and no one has to do any work. Yeah, that's great. And we can lay off someone in the city clerk's office. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Well, I think that would be a nice thing, but you cannot mandatorily make individuals do that. I don't think so.
You can make campaigns do it. You can make campaigns over a certain amount. You can make them do that.
Over a certain amount, right.
But over $1,000 if they file. You can do that. You can make campaigns do it. Electronically file. But I mean, because I agree with Mr. Toma, I mean, that stuff needs to get up.
And I don't think we currently have that software at this point in time.
Well, I don't know how
eventually we
difficult it
will.
needs to be.
Right now, I think we're just, it's a simple process of just scanning it, right? Putting it in the system?
It is. Mr. Toma and I had a chance to speak about this item when he brought it forth. Just to let everybody know, city clerk's office, for example, the Form 460s were due last Wednesday. They're already been put up there on the website and made available to the public right away. So the city clerk's office does put those documents up there rather quickly. There's just not a formal policy to do so. One of the things that we're looking to do as far as the technology upgrades is to allow candidates to put their information online as well. And so there is software that provides that. We just don't have that system yet. It's part of this whole technology upgrade, and we hope to get that as part of the technology upgrades in the near future.
It'd be very valuable, especially as far as the IEs and stuff they have to file here, because people don't look for that a lot.
Well, it's no different than the state now allows us to submit our Form 700s electronically now, too.
Right. Oh, that's a pain when you have a bunch of different things, they won't let you join them now. But so what would you like to, is there a motion, is there a direction? What would people like to do? I think there's direction to make it happen somehow, some way. So I think if you can report back to us,
if I could suggest, it's a rather simple matter. If there's consensus here, just by minute order, if the city attorney agrees, that would be policy.
Done.
No?
Is that 72 hours from receiving?
So, I mean, I hadn't thought about it, so I don't know, what do you guys think? Lloyd, Councilman Johnson, you raised the question. What do you think?
Well, I don't have a problem with it. And if I turn it into the city clerk's office, I don't say if she puts it on the same day. It makes no difference to me. I'm saying because she's pretty smart. She knows if we're doing something wrong in the first place.
The one issue you have with the 72 hours is the issue of the Friday being closed, depending on when filing is, whenever those deadlines fall. Because, you may be pushing the outer limits of it if because City Hall refuses to be open on Friday.
Well, I think it should be 3 business days.
3 business days? No.
Well, but if they're due on a Friday, that means they got to have them in Monday. And if you turn it in at 5:30 on a Friday.
Okay. Well, then the other option would be.
Excuse me,
that's the one problem you have. That's one problem you have is if the deadline falls. If the deadline falls, Thursday, and you turn it in Thursday at 5.
Yeah.
City Hall's only open another hour or two.
So then the other option would be like two business days. Is that fine? So, Councilman Johnson, within 2 business days of receipt by the city clerk's office?
I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, you're not doing it?
Hey, we have a great city clerk. I think she can do the job anytime.
Yeah, and obviously it's going to be busier than this time. It's going to be busier the next time, probably, maybe, who knows? Okay. So direction, minute order's been done.
There was a motion and a second that it be,
I thought we were just going to give direction, but I guess we'll
direction
have
is
Mr.
fine.
Toma make a motion.
It's not a minute order, it's a direction then.
Yeah, it was direction to do it.
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay. That concludes. Are there any AB 1234 reports? I did go to, what was that? What did I go to?
What did you go to?
It was really good, and I learned a lot. What was it? Yeah, I did. I went to the water. I went to the Three Valleys water breakfast. Yeah, Lloyd didn't go, but I did go to that and attended that and discussed water issues. Does anyone have anything they want to bring up?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes, I would like to report that San Dimas Heroes is hosting the Wall That Heals. The Vietnam Veteran Memorial Replica Mobile Education Center is going to be in San Dimas on March the 22nd through the 25th. And it'll be open 24 hours. So, just note that.
Mr. Wu.
Okay, February 16, okay, Lunar New Year, Year of the Dog. I want to wish everybody a Happy New Year.
Anything else?
Don't need any dog.
We are adjourned at 9:35. Don't tell my wife. Don't tell my wife. If I go home now, she'll know it's possible. It'd be horrible.
I know, but we still got done early because.